And the recording is on.
Super. You want to pause that until we
Yes, I
actually get
believe
started?
that's what we should.
Setup of this particular meeting, or whether we have the feature, but we don't seem to have that ability right now.
Okay, we'll work on it next week.
I think they're free in Zoom. A couple of them are free in Zoom.
Yeah.
Right, and they're really good.
They are, but you have to launch it at the very.
Attempting to get it to go. Now,
All right.
it says,
Okay.
wait 1 minute. It says pause.
It says recording on my end.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's August 4th, 2025, and this is the ad hoc committee meeting for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor for the Bel-Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. The first order of business is the call to order. The second order of business is our flag salute. Dr. Longcor, can you generate a flag so that we can do the flag salute? If you have that capability. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty, indivisible, and
with liberty
and justice for all.
Indivisible.
Sorry, it's just so slow. We're going so slow. It's just like with this Zoom thing, we have to go really slow. It gets confusing. Okay, so the next order of business is our roll call. Irene Sandler, the co-chair, is here. Pamela Pearson. We have Miss Pearson here. Last time she appeared via telephone, so she may be trying to raise her hand as call-in user 1.
We have a hand up for user 1.
Let's see here.
Pamela?
I don't think I am the co-host, so if someone could make me the co-host so that I could elevate people. All right, so we're gonna say that's Pamela. We'll confirm that later. Mr. Lawrence.
Here.
Okay, great. Ms. Templeton.
Here.
Mr. Brand.
Here.
And I'm here. Mr. Kemp is an excused absence tonight. Mr. Weisberg, Miss Weisberg.
I'm here, Jamie.
All right. Miss Miner. I see her here as a cat. And she's muted. Nikki, you want to unmute yourself? Okay. And then we have Mr. Schlesinger. See here? I do not see Bob Schlesinger tonight. And then we have Dr. Longcor. Okay, so did we manage to get Miss Pearson, let's see here, elevated to a panelist?
You can't panelist with a phone, but she's allowed to talk as soon as she unmutes.
Hello?
Okay,
there you go.
Great, perfect. So we'll keep you unmuted to make it easy. So just make sure that you don't have a fire truck going behind you or something. So the first order of business is the approval of the August 4th, 2025 agenda. May I have a motion?
So move.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, seconded. Does anyone have any discussion on the motion on the floor? All in favor of adoption of the...
Jamie, just out of a caution, we have 23 attendees, so on every item, please do ask for if there's any public comment to raise.
Okay. Would anyone in the public like to speak on item number 1, which is adoption of the agenda? If you would like to, please raise your hand. I do not see anyone that wants to discuss this topic. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Anyone abstaining? Seeing no abstentions, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Second item on the agenda is approval of the July 28th, 2025 minutes. That's attachment A. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Great, thank you, Ms. Miner. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Longcore. I'd like to, if there's anyone in the public comment, any of the attendees that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
There are no hands.
Okay, great. Ms. Templeton, you raised your hand.
Yes, there was just one thing. I did listen to the tape. I wasn't able to be here, but for the last meeting, and it was mentioned a couple of times that there is actually public transportation to the Getty Center, but it wasn't in the, and I'm not sure people caught it. I know Irene said it, but I'm not sure people caught it when it was said. And so I just kind of thought maybe it should be in the minutes. There's bus service. The Sepulveda bus does stop at the Getty Center.
Okay, thank you for that. Is that a suggested amendment to the minutes?
Irene,
Yes.
do you agree with that? Because I do not remember you saying that. So
Irene mentioned that there was bus service.
Well, if we have it as an addition, I think it makes everything more clear for those who haven't been at the meeting anyway.
okay, great.
Okay. So, Ms. Minor, will you accept a friend? Well, I guess there's an amendment. Okay, well, I'll do it this way. We have Ms. Minor, would you accept a amendment to your motion to include an edit that acknowledges that there is existing bus service to the Getty Center?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Templeton. Ms. Weisberg? were you-
I believe that Jonathan Brand is not a panelist. Is that possible?
No, we've got him now.
I'm
You
on
do.
now. I'm on now.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the attendees tonight that would like to discuss this item? Okay, so now we're going to take a vote on the motion, which is to adopt the minutes as amended. All in favor, please say aye or raise your digital hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed, please raise your hand. Would anyone like to abstain? All right, the motion is adopted unanimously. The third item of business is the general public comment period. The Bel-Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council welcomes comment from the public on any topic within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on the adopted agenda. General public comment is limited to 1 minute per speaker unless waived by the presiding officer. So tonight, this is an ad hoc committee to discuss, obviously, the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, DEIR. So if you're not here to discuss that item and there's something that you would like to discuss that's within our purview, now would be the time for you to raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Not seeing any hands. So it looks like everyone's here to discuss the main topic. Now we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the presentation and questions and answers / discussion with special guest speaker Fred Rosen on the position of the Bel-Air Association and Keep Bel-Air Beautiful on the Sepulveda Transit Corridor Draft Environmental Impact Report. Before we go on to that, I just want to remind our guest, since we have quite a few guests tonight, which I'm pleasantly surprised to see. And so what is happening right now is we are within the public comment period for the draft environmental impact report for this significant transit project. And the neighborhood council has created an ad hoc committee in order to inform ourselves and educate ourselves and to help better understand this project and the varying perspectives. This is our third meeting. And so we are not endorsing any of the particular viewpoints of the people who have attended thus far. We've heard from an individual from the Valley about the alternatives specifically that were evaluated. Last week, we heard from someone from the Getty Center. And tonight, we're going to hear from Fred Rosen of the Bel-Air Association and Keep Bel-Air Beautiful. So we're going to hear from Mr. Rosen. Then there's going to be a round of questions from the committee members. And then we're going to open it up for general public comment. And then after that, we're going to go into what we did last week, which is an effort to for committee work, for us to create notes from what we've discussed and learned. The goal here is to, after we're concluding all of these ad hoc committee members meetings, is to create a letter that then the whole neighborhood council can adopt and can be submitted during the general public comment period. So we're going to hear from our speaker and accept public comment, and then we're going to have committee work after that. All right, Mr. Rosen, you're next.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Doing well. Good to see you.
To make this thing make some sense, how long do you want me to speak? And then I want to be able to answer questions, which I think is more important than what I'm going to say.
We have a lot of time. We're actually scheduled to go till 8:30. So I'd really just tell you to take whatever time you need. I suspect we're going to want 30 minutes maybe for our committee work. Yeah.
I won't need more than 15 minutes.
Oh, then you feel free. Have at it.
To read what I want to read and talk about. I think the thing that fascinates me the most about this project, and I'll get into the specifics, how people can advocate for something that they have no idea what it's going to cost, and they have no idea how long it's going to take to build. Metro looks at all of us as patsies, whether it's the gondola project in Chinatown, whether it's how they treat the residents in Lawndale, or how they treat us in Bel-Air. The history of Bel-Air is really interesting in terms of what the city sees us as. They basically see us as a wallet. And I'll explain that as I go along. And I think some of you, Nikki was around, I think Robin was around, when I changed the building rules for Bel-Air and got an overlay for 5 days a week, 8 to 6, no more than 6,000 cubic yards of dirt taken out of any project, no outdoor work on Saturday. And when I started that project and started to talk to people in the city, their comments were really interesting. They said, "You live in Bel-Air, why do we care?" That's not a good comment. And worse than that is nobody wanted to pay any attention, which leads to Metro, which I think is one of the worst run, incompetent, inept group of people under one roof. Because the one thing I do not want when this conversation is over is to be any lack of clarity of where I'm coming from and where our community is coming from. To begin with, no one talked to us before the routes were drawn. There was zero community involvement. And to put this in perspective, when we took Ray Sosa's deposition about a month ago, which I circulated to our community, Ray Sosa said, "Well, I know I've met with the lobbyist from UCLA, but why would I meet with anybody from Bel-Air? You're just a bunch of residents." Kind of fascinating. And to put this in perspective so you all understand that, so I can basically make this in a situation you can all understand and how personal it is. Suppose somebody called you up one day, and for those of you who own property, and said, "We're going to build a pickleball court, or we're going to build a swimming pool for the community on your property without talking to you." So that's where the premise of all this stuff comes from. And that's where it started. And what's fascinating is in one of the last communications from that organization, Anthony Crump, whose title is Executive Officer of Community Relations, we've never heard from him. No one has reached out. No one wants to talk to us. They don't have to like what I write. But the reality underneath it is they never argue about the facts. They argue about the tone. And after you've written 4, 5, or 6 nice letters and you get ignored, people like myself don't take that very kindly. When Metro did come to a meeting at the BAA, which was about 5 years ago, nobody would answer a question. The guys sat there like Stonehenge, and there was one woman there, Karen Swift, who left Metro and came back. And Karen basically said, "You cannot find out any information independently. We will give you all the information." How are you supposed to make an analysis if you don't have the independent ability to talk to the bidders? And every single one of the Kabuki Theater sessions that Metro holds is they control the questions, they control what's said, It's basically show and tell you what they want you to know. Now, here's something interesting. We waited for the DEIR. It's 3 years late. 3 years late. In 25 years, Metro has not built one thing on time, on budget. Not once have any of their ridership projections been correct. So why would anybody believe anything they put out? And then just to insult our intelligence, the numbers they put out are from 2023, which means they're stale to start with. Because what they don't want the public to know is the truth of what this project's going to cost. To put this in perspective, tunneling, which I got before Ray Sosa was the project manager, and he works for Peter Carter. And Peter Carter said on one phone call, I mean, my view of him, and I know you're recording this, so this is really clear because I've said it before, he's a blithering idiot. He said, we don't look at price because that could impact our decision. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but LA's broke. The state's got a deficit. The Fed's not giving us any money. So how in the world does anybody think operating in a closed environment where no one understands a thing about cost? How can you look at options when you know you can't afford them? So they put out this DEIR. The numbers they put out are 2023. Okay. De La Loza, who I said before was the project manager before, I got him to admit that no tunneling can be done by the time this starts, if it did start in 26, it would be less than $2 billion a mile. To be clear, 6 miles of BART signed off by the feds in November or December of last year, I can't quite remember. It's $12.6 billion. Feds are putting up half the money. This is when Biden was still president. And I don't know where the money's coming from, whether it's the state or, I don't know, I doubt it's the city. I think it's probably the state. So it's $12.6 billion for 6 miles. The last 2 miles of the 2nd Avenue subway, which was published the first quarter in New York, is $4 billion a mile. That's $8 billion. There is any tunneling is not less than 12 miles underground. Some are 13. That comes to about $26 billion. Now, we don't have $26 billion. Where's that going to come from? And considering Metro's track record, which does count, and I don't say that as a pun, they'll never build this for the numbers they're talking about. And if you sit down and do a real analysis and step back and take the emotion out, this is a 20-year project north of $40 billion. Going under a residential community, going under a jewel of this city, which is the Bel-Air Hotel, where the community is going to be impacted, it's in the report, by vibrations and by noise. Not only is that unacceptable, we won't tolerate it. We went to litigation because they would not deliver the documents we asked for under the Freedom of Information Act, and they stonewalled us for 3 years. Last week, we got the judge has told Metro they have to, I can't get the exact number, somewhere between 300 and 400 documents that they didn't want to give us. And we'll have those in early September, and I will make them available for everyone to see. My view of this, in a very interesting way, is what are they hiding? What are they afraid of? They clearly have no interest in transparency. None. They clearly have no interest in telling the truth. And to put that in perspective, when you release the 2023 numbers, when you know you can't build it for what you did in 2023, then here's my question, and make it personal to all of you. If you went to a car dealership and they advertised 2023 prices, and you walked in and said, oh, it's 20% more because it's 2025, you'd be pretty angry. And the reality underneath that would be you wouldn't tolerate it. Well, we're not going to tolerate it either. And the question for us is, how smart can we make the rest of the community in terms of not being patsies? They have no problem. Metro's got no problem hanging out with the lobbyists for UCLA. And I call it, whether it's I call it STDs for all, but I think it's STCs for all. It's fundamentally a lobbying organization of Metro. The people who are running around for streets for all. Here's the problem in this city. It really exists, and Metro is only one example of it. If you're an advocate for anything, you're a good person. But if you're an advocate for your community, that's NIMBY. The hypocrisy is staggering. So fundamentally, when you look and you analyze what's going on in this city, is this: the board of directors of Metro has fundamentally allowed Metro to behave unaccountably for the last 30 years. No one's held to account. No one's held to a budget. No one's held to responsibility. No one's held to ridership numbers. And to show you how broke they are, they need $3 billion for the Olympics, which they don't have at the moment. There is a bond issue, which I'm sure most of you don't know, that's going to be on the ballot next November or whenever the election, maybe it's June, I don't remember, for Metro, which will be used in various metros for $20 billion. And this is after having Measure M, where they have significant amounts of money, but it's kind of difficult to do all the projects they want with the money they have. They can't be trusted. And I'm certainly, and our community is certainly not going to let them dig under our community, period. Whatever it takes to make sure that doesn't happen, you all need to understand that. This isn't a game. This isn't being funny. This isn't Beverly Hills. This is more than CEQA. This relates to a whole level of what I consider deceitful behavior, misrepresentations, and whether there's individual liability here, I have no idea. But let me put it like this. We have no intention of going gently into that good night. And when people sit there and they go, oh, this is such a great thing. What do you think if this takes 20 years to build? It would be obsolete before it's finished. We're talking about driverless cars. I saw last week in Florida, they have basically driverless vans. Fundamentally, who wants to go in a subway? This is Southern California. In Southern California, the minute you get $200, you get a car. Think of how technology has changed our life. We just got back from a trip to London. The internet worked from LA to London without a hitch. That wasn't there 3 years ago. 3D houses are built today with concrete. Has Metro bothered to explore the idea of using 3D to put a second story on the 405? Metro has never answered why they didn't go down the 405 to start with. Woke up one morning and said, oh, we'll just go down your route. Or we'll put 3 routes underneath, and then everybody runs around and thinks that monorails are like Disneyland, which is absurd. LA should be on the cutting edge of life, not following some rules that were invented in the 19th century. Give me a second. I need that. You know what? I'll do the following. Oh, this is the best. This is how things relate in terms of how I see our government. I call it Los Angeles. City's broke. Too many people on the streets. You're going to sit in a room and how's the city going to get fixed? You need to bring business back here. The only thing that city council, I'm not for defunding the police, I'm for defunding the city council. Our council person is friendly with Nithya Raymond, helps her campaign to be elected. And what does Nithya do? She lies about ULA, which is not only this nonsense about a mansionization tax, it related to all commercial and retail and individual homes. And today in Los Angeles, if you compare what it was 10 years ago, permits for new property, new buildings, and so on is less than 25% of what it was in 2015. People don't even know who they represent anymore. And let me explain something. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I thought you elect people, they're supposed to represent the communities they're involved in. Obviously, that doesn't work here. Secondly, and maybe lastly, on 2 points. When Sheila Kuehl was the county representative, not once did she ever show up in Bel-Air. I mean, this is one level of example, serious levels of example of a continuing course of conduct. Her transportation person was a woman by the name of Madeline Moore. I was on the phone with her, I think about 5 years ago, while Sheila was still county supervisor. And I always ask the same question. If it was your money, would you spend it like this? Look in the mirror and tell me, is there any logic to this? Where people whose communities can be impacted have no right to have independent verification of what they're being told. And I said, you take the weekend and think about it and tell me what you think the answer should be. And she took the weekend and sent me an email next week and she said, no, we're gonna defer to Metro on everything. You know who she works for today? Metro. If you think any of that is sane, if you think putting out 2023 numbers and saying, wow, look what we did. We're 3 years late and we're giving you numbers that are 3 years late and you should be thrilled with the information we're providing you. They think we're all morons. They think we're all sheep to slaughter. Well, it's not gonna happen in our community. Last point, and then I'll answer any question anybody wants. About 3 weeks ago, I invited representatives from Metro, representatives from Bechtel, representative from BYD to a meeting. And I said, I will rent a meeting room at the Bel-Air Hotel. Bob Anderson and I will moderate. Each of you can come make a presentation. We will invite the communities of Bel-Air, Sherman Oaks, anybody that's interested in this project, people will be allowed to come. And let's have a really open and honest discussion and presentation, knowing full well they weren't going to do it. And of course, on December 3rd, and I said, you got to answer me by July 31st. And on July 31st, I get an email that says, we're not going to make that, but you can come to our Kabuki Theater presentations, which, you know, but we're not coming to yours. If you don't have any integrity, if you can't sit in the room and take the heat, if you can't sit in the room and tell people why anybody should give you $30 or $40 billion, because that's the reality of any tunnel, then why are they there? And here's the worst part. The mayor's got 4 seats on that board, 4. If you look at their record, the last 20, I mean, and there was a murder on another murder last week on one of the train stations or one of the stations that Metro has. It's like you think a felony a month keeps people away. They're incapable. They're inept. I know exactly what I'm saying. I've written it. People don't want to hear it. And they think there's going to be some magic thing that these tunnels under the Sepulveda Pass are going to change the world. No, they're not going to change the world because LA's people aren't going to ride 12 miles underground. Forget it. It's never going to happen. So in the end, I spoke with Travis and I've watched different people, you know, tell me what they think they should do with our community. I've watched communities in this city evolve. I watched communities in this city deteriorate. Every time I don't go to Westwood anymore, but that's a sad excuse for what it was. It strikes me that we have a right to protect our community. It's not NIMBY. If these people were efficient, if these people were good at what they did, maybe you could blame me. Or you could say, oh, it's Bel-Air, it's a bunch of rich people. But this is a lot more serious than that. If Metro was serious, they would go down to 405. But they didn't choose to do that. They just said, screw you guys. You know, it's just another example of hanging people who have been successful. Well, I've had it. And if you sit back and think about it as a neighborhood council, the thing that counts, that brought us all to this city, was leadership, was quality of life, was understanding that government was there to help, not hurt. What's happened on the streets is an embarrassment. No one has the right to live on the streets. What we have done in this city, we can't even fill our police department. I mean, my wife and I went to look at another house, and I was told there's no longer a master bedroom. We call them primary bedrooms. And my view of that was the kitchen and the bathrooms must have protested. We have lost our mind. And underneath it, I don't care the names I'm called, it's irrelevant. I want people to use their heads. And we don't demand what we need to demand from our government, our local government. Forget the feds, we can't do anything about them. But from our local government, it's not an accident the city's broke. It's not an accident that people are living on the streets, 40, 50, 60,000 of them. Think of the money that's been wasted. The county has signed a deal for $4 billion. I don't even understand what they did for $4 billion, but this relates to damages they created. The teachers are another $500,000 of what they did. Every year, the city's paying out judgments of $500 million. The homeless, we've wasted $3 billion on. So when you look at what's happened in the last 10 years, $10 billion has gone down the drain. That doesn't improve anybody's quality of life. And then you have my favorite group, Streets for All, where Michael Schneider runs around screaming and carrying on about what he wants. So we have bicycle lanes when we don't have safe roads. I'll tell you the biggest beneficiary of bicycle lanes, the emergency rooms in the hospital. You can have bicycle lanes without having roads that are safe. And the city has chosen that they figured out the damages they pay for the roads not being fixed is cheaper than fixing the roads. This is an absence of leadership that's staggering. So if you think I wanted to find out about any of this, you're wrong. But I have. And the reality underneath this is Bel-Air's position is intractable. I don't care if we're in court for 5 years. This will 10 years. This will never happen. So the question is how you put pressure on Metro to say, enough of the nonsense, tell us the truth. What are the even the 2025 numbers? We're talking about August. So the reality is, assume this would start in 26 to 27 if the priority of what they need funds for, because they're going to need money for the Olympics, for security, about $3 billion, and for buses, which they don't have, which means it's conceivable this won't start for 3 or 4 years. Where is that money going to come from? And how much is this really going to cost? And they don't want to answer that question. And I must tell you, I'm really shocked. I've seen a lot in my life. I've run some very difficult companies. I've been in quite a number of controversies. I'm not somebody that shies away from confrontation. But when I watch how the behavior of these people, it's staggering to me. It's staggering that no one holds them accountable. It's staggering after a level of failure of serious proportions. The board gives Stephanie an extension of 4 years of her contract with a 20% raise. Are we all that stupid? I don't call it the silent majority. I call it the exhausted majority. The people in this city who scream the loudest get hurt. And the rest of us go along to get along. And no one hears from us. And we don't have people. We need real leaders in office. We need people who understand how to create a quality of life and make difficult decisions. Karen got to be mayor. I mean, I'm going off on a different level for the moment. She got that as a consolation prize because she wasn't vice president, but she wasn't picked for vice president. But she has no executive skills. She's a lovely woman. Spent her entire life in the legislature. You don't take a baseball player and make him a football player. You don't take a basketball player and make him a hockey player. It doesn't work. And part of the reason the city is suffering is a lack of leadership, and no one's sitting in a room and going, what are you doing? Anyway, I'll open it up to questions now. Travis?
All right, so thank you, Fred. We really appreciate your perspective, and you've obviously put a lot of thought and time and effort into this matter. So what I want to do, consistent with the way we run these other meetings, is open this up for committee discussion, or committee questions to Fred. Start raising your hand, and all right, Miss Weisberg, you're first out.
Thank you, and Jamie, and thank you, Fred, for taking the time to talk with us tonight. Can you talk to the committee about why it is an enormous mistake to tunnel under the hills of Bel-Air?
Well, in light of the fact that over the last 5 years, or last 10 years, before we changed the building rules, 1 million cubic yards of dirt's been taken out of the hills. Tunneling is not free. Tunneling is a highly expensive solution to a problem that makes no sense, that no one's going to use. Metro's numbers about ridership hasn't been correct in 20 years, period. Thirdly is, did you see the tunnel collapse a couple weeks ago downtown? You think any of this is safe? Considering Metro's 25-year track record of ineptitude, of failing to build anything on time or on budget, you're going to trust them for safety? There are floods in New York in the subways. This is California. This is not a logical solution to anything. Okay? It's a forced solution because people at UCLA do have a lot of power. I can't tell you they don't. But let me tell you the following. When your voice isn't heard, then you're not seen. When the head of Metro's community relations hasn't bothered coming to our community, why should I believe anything they say? When I ask them to talk independently why this makes any sense, you don't get an answer. Thirdly, more important than all of that is it's stupid. It's idiotic. And here's a really interesting question. First of all, they lied. This is very interesting. Bob Anderson and I talk a lot, the people at Sherman Oaks. So if you look at Metro, the trains can go 60 miles an hour, but the monorail can only go 40, and they fixed the capacity so that the monorail will look like it doesn't carry as many people as the trains do. That's a lie. Straight up lie. Thirdly, just out of logic and laughs, if all these people are going to ride the subway from the valley, here's my stupid question. Where are they going to park to get to where they need to be? No one's even thought of that. Then, if you're going to go under the hills of Bel-Air, you're going to need easements, you're going to need eminent domain, and that'll keep that in the courts for another couple of years. I have an old, interesting premise. When it starts out idiotic, it doesn't get any better. This whole process is idiotic, run by a group of mediocrities in a place that no one's held accountable. There isn't one business person on that board, and they spend billions of dollars. When was the last time anybody was fired? When was the last time anybody was held accountable? And how in the world can you give their CEO a 4-year extension with a 20% raise based on her, and this is not a pun, her track record? You're measured by how you do. She's terrible. So, but she does have a personal photographer that we all pay for. Next question.
All right, Miss Templeton.
Okay, so I actually have kind of a couple in a row, if that's okay. So basically, are you familiar? I suppose you're familiar with like Jevon's paradox or Bray's paradox?
No.
Okay, so this is like for everybody, you might find it interesting. So Jevon's paradox is basically when you make a resource more efficient or easier to use, more people use it, and ultimately it becomes as difficult to use as it was before you made it easier to use. And Ray's paradox that applies to traffic. So when you add another road or another layer of a road above a road, the traffic frees up, so more people drive until you reach the same capacity that you had before. And we all saw this.
Stop. I said that without finishing what I was thinking.
Okay.
There are 3 lanes on top. Electric.
Okay, but yes.
No, there's no
Okay.
cars on top. You want to do something that's really about the future. You sit with the people with 3D technology. So I'm not going to buy into that nonsense. And I'm serious about this. What goes on top are 3 lanes. Electric buses going from the valley to the airport with stops along the way, 1 going to the airport, 1 coming back, and a middle lane for in case they break down, with stops along the way. The reality underneath this is this is not, I forget the movie, if you build it, they will, the baseball movie, if you build it, they will come. Here's the real paradox. That's nonsense. Because it's never been proven anywhere. And if anybody takes the time, which unfortunately I have done, no metro anywhere in the United States built anywhere has ever met the projections they said they were going to deliver. None. So the paradox doesn't work. And it's delusional to think that, well, if we build it, they'll use it. It's not going to happen.
Okay, that's not what Bray's paradox is. Like when they widened the 405 and added more lanes, it took a couple of years, but it's just as crowded as it was before. And so the theory is, the Bray's paradox basically says when you add lanes, they fill up until it's just as slow as it was before. And my question is, because there is a cost to doing nothing. And that cost is borne by not only the people that are stuck in traffic for an hour or more to get across the Sepulveda Pass, but also the people who live on the roads that are heavily traveled by commuter traffic. And I realize that your area of Bel-Air doesn't get impacted that much. I'm from what used to be known as Upper Bel-Air and is now known as Bel-Air Hills, and we are greatly impacted by it. And the people on Beverly Glen are impacted by it, and the people in Laurel Canyon and Benedict Canyon, they're greatly impacted, and their health is impacted when you've got cars backed up and your house is near the road and you're breathing those fumes. So there is a problem, it is a problem that needs a solution. And so that was why I was asking you about, if it's not mass transit, then what is it?
Are you aware of the fact that they're going to be flying taxis?
Well, there may be flying taxis and there may not be flying taxis. And would I prefer flying
No,
taxis?
no.
They're loud too.
Patricia, the reality of what's coming is this. Solar cars, 1-passenger cars. There are all kinds of ways to face the future. Do you know when Metro started this project? 2014. If anybody sat in a room and spent 15 years doing a project, by the time you get the answer, it's a failure. And the answer can't be, well, we have a problem, so what are we going to take? We're going to take the worst. We're going to sacrifice the community so that everybody else will make the traffic go away. It's nonsense. Let me be really clear. It's nonsense and it's delusional. Straight up. Think about this. Think about this. Look at television. Where was streaming 20 years ago? Nowhere. Now, terrestrial television is declining and disappearing. You have to think about technology. If you use 3D technology to go and because it's just stanchions and adding roads and have the whole thing pre-built, and you use electric buses, you'd be a hell of a lot more efficient. And here's a shock. It would cost you less than 20% of what these idiots want to spend. And you can do it quicker. So don't talk to me about the benefit of something that may never happen.
Okay, I will leave my comment there.
Great. Other committee members, Ms. Minor.
Hi, Fred. I'm so glad to see you and hear you because you make so much sense. For about 5 years now, I've been trying to get an answer to where the escape hatches would be in this so-called tunnel that's going from the valley to the city. The can's been kicked down the road. I've been stonewalled. Nobody ever gives me an answer. In fact, people are mad at me because I want to know the answer. There we go, with transparency, with hiding the truth, with everything else that you've mentioned. So I pose the question again, where are the escape hatches? Any other, the subway in New York City, for example, or anywhere else in the world, there are stops along the way. So you can get out and you go up a stop, however far it is. These are miles long with no escape hatches whatsoever. You also mentioned the other things that are that just drive me crazy, which is the eminent domain. Like, what do you expect to take? They're going to ruin Sherman Oaks, going to ruin West LA. To what, to what gain? And then the other thing also, of course, is the parking. Hello. And then if people, it's LA is still LA. LA is laid out as a car city. And if people go from Woodland Hills and then they have to drive to Van Nuys and get out of subway, whatever is there, to get through the tunnel. And then when they get the other side of the tunnel, then where do they go? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense, like, to do something right now to have a bunch of Wemos that go from Valley to City and take people to Century City or to Mid Wilshire or Torrance or wherever they want to go? I mean, this whole thing is so crazy and so wrong and just so bizarre. All I can do is say thank you for coming, Fred, really.
I want to say something and add to this, because I see this is part of the stupidity in the city and why we allow ourselves to be sheep. I see Duane from UCLA is on the call, and Duane Muller and Michael Beck. Initially, he's the vice chancellor at UCLA. He writes a letter to Metro, which he subsequently modifies because he said he talked to us. And Travis stood up and said, no, talking to the neighborhood council is not the same thing as talking to the community. So here's my question in the level of hypocrisy, proving under the heading of NIMBY. So Michael is the city manager of Pasadena, and Kobe King, who's the lobbyist, and whoever puts a bowl in front of him is what he feeds from. So fundamentally, when he was the city manager, he killed an underground solution in South Pasadena. Then all of us, and had all these reasons why it wasn't good. Now all of a sudden he's at UCLA and it's good. Does anybody get upset at the hypocrisy? At some point, people like me who are business people and who sit and have some pragmatic level of looking at things and solving them. If we were sitting here and you said to me, anybody on this call, that Metro had a really good track record. They built things on time. They built things on budget. They didn't impact the communities they were supposed to serve. The trains and the buses were safe. And they had a history of doing that. Well, let's put it like this. Maybe you could make a different argument. You can't make that argument now with their history. And anybody who believes anything they say, I'll spare the adjective. The reality is this: you are responsible for who you are. I'm responsible for saying the things I say. I'm responsible for the things I write. I don't sugarcoat it. The truth of the matter is this, and I'll say it again: Metro's a furtive, dishonest, deceitful public organization. And anybody who would put a trust in an organization like that needs to have their head examined. Now, one last thing, because I know the people in Westwood are really hot to make this happen. Take a look at Westwood. There's a perfect example of a community that's been ruined. We're not going to have that here. When I first came to LA 40 years ago, my ex-wife and I used to go to Westwood. The streets were full at night. The stores were full. There were restaurants. You go down Westwood Boulevard, it looks like an industrial zone in the Midwest. And you go in town and see the number of stores that are empty, the movie theaters that are empty. There are nobody on the streets. We're not going to have that here. You can advocate all you want. You're never going to get it. And you need to hear it. And let me tell you something. The problem, the last good mayor we had in this city, I guess Anthony did some good things, was Dick Reardon.
Yep.
Eric, 9 years of uselessness, and Karen, 3 years of cluelessness. And you know what? We need a disruptor. Somebody who's going to stand up and go, forget the emperor's new clothes. There's no emperor. If you think I'm angry about this, don't be misunderstood. I am. Because in the end, we're supposed to be smarter. And LA was supposed to be is the coolest place in this country. And let me tell you where we are. When I was here, the first 15 years of my time here, 80s and 90s, I'd go anywhere and people went, you live in LA, how cool is that? How great is that? My wife and I were in New York a month ago, and the Uber driver says to us, what are you doing about the homeless? Is that who we are? So we have stupid solutions to serious problems, because if we don't have a stupid solution, then what's going to happen to the people? Patricia, in all due respect, you'll be in an old, I don't know that I would be here, but this ain't getting done till 2050. Next year, there are buildings downtown, they're going to have flying taxis. There's a company called Archer, and there are 8 electric engines. And there are going to be 1-passenger solar cars, and there are going to be more electric cars, and there are going to be a whole different way of looking at this. We're looking at technology that's 30 years old, with a group who won't let us even talk to the bidders. That's not acceptable. They brought this on themselves. What they didn't expect was that they would get somebody like me on the other side. And the other side about this is, I don't speak for myself, I speak for my community. I don't write the checks for all the legal fees. I write my portion, but I get supported by a lot of people. And when Katie Yaroslavsky came to the meeting, to a Bel-Air Association meeting, and somebody asked her about what position are you going to take on this project, she said, well, it was difficult. You know what happened with the 150 people in the room? They booed her. Who do you represent? Right? You're going to sell us out for UCLA? You're going to sell us out for people? There isn't one, I'll go back and repeat this. There isn't one transit company, metro company, anywhere in the United States that has ever made the projections they talked about with ridership. It's a delusion. And if you take the time to read, because there's lots of documents now and there's lots of articles, that public transportation has never worked out the way it was planned anywhere in the country. And it's certainly not going to work out here. And I want you to think about this. So, okay, so now we spend $40 billion on this subway, and it's under Bel-Air, and we have one really good earthquake. How many years is it going to take to recover from that? You're in a place where the land moves. You're in a place where the mountains are unstable. I know what it takes to build here because we built our house, and I know what my friends go through. And you're in a city where you have the tyranny of the bureaucracy. If any of you followed this, somewhere in a group in Sotel, because the city pays no attention, went out and they painted a crosswalk to protect their citizens. And then the city comes along and paints over it because they didn't get their permission. We need a revolution in this city, not the kind of revolution where people stand in the street and block traffic, but we need a revolution where people vote, where we put people in office who have common sense, who aren't afraid to break some eggs, and basically who know how to take us to tomorrow, not to yesterday. And I believe that with all my heart.
All right. Other committee members with questions?
Well, I want to finish my question back to the underground tunneling, which would be disastrous. What the DEIR has from 2023 has nothing in it about escape hatches. That in itself, to me, is a sign that the whole thing is a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, Fred, have you seen anything about escape hatches?
First of all,
Nothing happens?
Bob Anderson read it. It's 25,000 pages. The reason that we have 90 pages instead of 90 days for people to look at it instead of 30 is because I think Metro's afraid of what we've been doing. They've never been held accountable the way we've held them accountable. So the answer is, I don't know the answer to your question. I can get you the answer. I can have Bob, I'll talk to Bob and he'll get it. And this isn't Bel-Air alone. This is Bel-Air, this is Sherman Oaks, this is other parts of the city. Look what's going on in the city. Just the whole way that Metro announces this thing in Chinatown, where they're going to do this gondola, and they never talk to anybody in Chinatown. You know, that's bureaucratic tyranny. It puts every community on the defense.
Yep.
And the reality is, to be clear, so for those of you who don't agree with me, that's your right, because this is America. We're not going to stand for it. And as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't end till I get them all fired and bring in a third party like a McKinsey to review how they behave, review with their staff. I've heard stories of people making 6 figures who don't go to work. I don't know if any of them are true. And we're paying for these morons. It's enough already. Anyway, next question.
All right. I saw that Miss Templeton, no, excuse me. We had call-in speaker Pearson. Did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Point of information from the DEIR position that was, I believe, a point of interest for many people. I'm sure it's been discussed, but refresher, we've had in the 30 years I've been here, within the last 5 years, we've had 2 in excess of 4.0 earthquakes, one on either side of the 405 in Encino and in the Bel-Air area, that nobody even knew the faults were there. This is a Modelo formation of weathered sandstone with shale. It is not the granite in New York and throughout countries in Europe where subways are very successful. It's the situation that we all remember when they put the red line down Hollywood Boulevard and it collapsed repeatedly and a lot of small businesses lost everything. So it, as Nikki has pointed out, is ill-conceived to think that they haven't even accounted for the amount of infrastructure to prop up this type of geology and what consideration for water seepage. That's a problem in any infrastructure. The gas accumulation, the potential for fire, and then there's no escape route. Yes, it is a problem, and it appears, as you have observed, Mr. Rosen, that this massive city is lacking in a master planning that would have anticipated, if you were trying to connect Santa Clarita in the North Valley to LAX, of course you're going to need parking in intervals, and maybe that could be accomplished where people could have one person or small rental cars that are electric available, and that's a point of reference to connect them and integrate within a bus system and a subway system. But it requires planning. You have to be practical. And they could have solar panels charging the little vehicles for free. So people, once they got to their destination, they could just have a day rental. It works in other places, but they are very thoughtful about their plans.
You make excellent points, and I agree with them. But then let me give you my perspective as to one thing which doesn't change, and there's somebody on the phone who has worked for me in the past. I cannot comprehend how this project in 2014 started. We're 11 years into it. The DEIR is 3 years late and tells us nothing. It's 25,000 pages of dribble, because if you don't know what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take to build, none of it makes any sense. Why are these people still working there? That's a real question. Can you imagine if Bechtel was building it on, and if somebody comes to them with a project, the first thing you ask as the CEO of any company or any city is, okay, we're going to do this. I want to know when I put these things out based on what I want to build, and people build infrastructure, plenty of infrastructure projects, and they build dams and they build skyscrapers that cost billions of dollars. You think they take 11 years to plan it? No. Do you think that when they come up with a report, they go, well, it's 3 years late? Why? Then they give you numbers that are stale. In the public markets, if you put out numbers that are stale, that's misrepresentation and fraud. But because it's a public agency, we go, well, the public agencies are not held to the same standard as private. And I'm not expecting to do that. But you know what? I'll take a thimble of common sense. And we don't even get the thimble.
All right, so let's, we got 3 committee members with questions. I'm going to start with, I'm not sure who had their hand up longest, but I'm going to start with Ms. Sandler.
I think you've done a terrific job of undermining the undermining of our Santa Monica Mountains. But you haven't spoken about the project on the freeway. Would you be able to do that tonight?
First of all, you mean what I was talking about?
Well, the monorail.
Look, as the way I looked at it cursorily, and I'm not telling you I have the same level of extent of knowledge because I've relied on Bob. I looked at it the following way. In a lot of countries, people are using monorails. I came back from China, there's monorails all over the place. They can work. We should be on the cutting edge of that. I have not dug down. Here is the way I looked at this, and I reserve the right to be wrong about this. I thought all subways were non-starters, period. So instead of really focusing on the monorail, to be fair, I haven't spent a lot of time doing that, but it struck me as follows. The monorail is tomorrow. The trains are yesterday. So wouldn't it be smart to figure out how to get that done? And in the end, where stations are, where you need to put them, what needs to be done, those are all issues that if you were serious about doing it, you would do it. But here's the basic problem I have with all of it. How can you have a project that takes 11 years to plan, 20 years to build, and think in any way that's going to serve anybody? Personally, if it was up to me, you'll have a heart attack with this, all of you, is I'd fire everybody, I'd scrap all of these, I'd bring in a management team and take people from Bechtel and people from Fluor and people who were the senior executives there or people who have retired and say, we'll pay you $1 million a year. First, make the trains safe. Please make the buses safe. Let's deal with issues and then come up with a plan. You got 2 years to come up with a plan, not 11 years. There's no sense of urgency to attach to this. And then look at 3D solutions. Look at other solutions besides what we have. Instead of you have that idiot Peter Carter who sits there with a smile and says, we don't look at price because that could impact our judgment. And why I have such intense dislike for that idiot is I was on one of those calls about 3 years ago, and some person who I don't know said, Mr. Carter, for the Olympics, do you think it's possible that either the monorail or the subway could be built by 28? You all know the answer to that. And Peter sat there and lied. Well, it's a complicated question. I don't really have the answer to. Of course he had the answer. The same way these guys all know what this is going to cost. but they don't want the public to know the truth. Because let me tell you something from my experience running a company, running multiple companies. People who commit sins of commission walk in a room and go, I screwed up. Never get mad at those people. What you do, what happened, how do you fix it? Simple. You know who used to scare me? The people who wouldn't tell me the truth. And they take little campfires that would turn into forest fires because they were afraid to be candid and honest. And that's what Metro is. It's a scared, frightened, inept, incompetent, deceitful organization. Take that for what you want, but that's the truth. And I put in the time. Believe me, this was not what I'm planning on doing, but you know, I'm 81, you got to be somewhere. So the reality underneath it is this. You cannot comprehend what you have. You have to go back and start all over again. I know that's a terrible answer, but I really think that's the only answer you can have with capable people making that decision. Every single metro organization in the United States is broke. It's broke. Public transportation is this dream somewhere. Everything should be electric buses. Everything should be the ability to figure out how to move them quickly with lanes and so on, and change the dynamic, bring original thinking to this. You know, Calvin Coolidge is not our president. We're lost in the we're lost in early 20th century thinking. None of you have to agree with me. This is my perception, and I'm gonna do what I need to do to protect our community, but nobody has the right to run over it. Let me be clear, no one has that right. And I won't stand for it, and neither will all the residents of our community. And when that idiot who sat there and took the deposition and said, oh, we don't have to talk to people in their Bel-Air because they're just homeowners. Would any of you be as angry as I am?
Absolutely.
So the answer is this. Do I have the answer of what we need to do? No. Do I think the monorail is a better solution than any of the trains? Yes. Do I think that's the ultimate solution? I'm not sure. But here's the one thing I do know. I wouldn't trust these people and gave them a $100 bill to come back with groceries. You got to start all over again, because basically what they've done is they spent hundreds of millions of dollars wasting money. And that's what they're good at, squandering money. Anybody who interacts with them winds up hating them. Deal with that. You don't have to like it, but that's the truth.
All right,
So as a
so
follow-up, I wanted to ask you, because Bob Anderson said that he came to the conclusion that no project would be better than any of the projects. The public is being asked to make a choice, and people come up to me all the time and say, well, what choice would you make? And I said, educate yourself and see what choice you would make. The problem is that public cannot educate themselves because the space for education is taken up by Metro. What would you suggest to get out some more facts to the public? Because they are going to vote one of the many flawed choices.
Look, let me do the following. Anybody can take anything. Bob and I can write a fact sheet in terms of a lot of the things I've said. So, you know, people can advocate it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So let's say you advocate a train. Now we're in court. Court is 4, 5, 6 years. Does anybody realize what the high-speed train from where was it? From San Francisco to LA, and now it's lost somewhere in Bakersfield. It's supposed to cost $30 million, and now it's up to $100 million, and they need another $40 million for. The whole thing's a joke. What you need to say to people, in my opinion, is we need to go back to the drawing board. None of this works. We started something in 2014. The world has significantly changed. We got to go to our city council people and the people on the board, and we need to get everybody on the board, all the executives of Metro fired, and bring in smart people and say, here's 2 years figure out the best way how to do this in a way that deals with 21st century technology. May not like that answer and people may not like it, but let me be real clear, you're not getting a tunnel. That's a non-starter. So let's deal with the issue. Since that's a non-starter, where are we?
So
and look, go ahead, Jamie.
no, we have actually several committee members with questions, but we also have to take public comment, and it's 7:40 since we had a lot of people here, and I just want to make sure that we give people that opportunity. So what I would, let's just go ahead and finish up with the questions. I see 3 hands raised, Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Brand, and Ms. Templeton. So we're going to take 3 more rounds of committee questions, and then we're going to open it up to public comment. Mr. Lawrence, your hand has been up a very long time, so you're next.
I appreciate that, Jamie. Thanks for coming in, Fred. Appreciate you speaking on it. My question was largely answered by Irene's follow-up, but I would be curious to hear a little bit more from you, Fred, about how you see this future technology. Obviously this is a speculative thing. I'm not expecting you to have some sort of fully fleshed out answer of how that would work, but would that be in your mind, let me take a step back. What I just heard you say was that your desired outcome for this was to scrap it, start from zero. Let's look at future technology. What would that future technology look like? You have talked about solar cars, self-driving cars, those kinds of solutions, that company Archer, electric flying taxis or something like that. I was expound a little bit.
But let me do something. Look, if you're sitting in a car for 2 hours going through the Sepulveda Pass and you can't work, I acknowledge it's a pain in the ass. I'm not going to argue about that. But if you're sitting in a driverless van and you can work while you're there and you're not driving, it's no different than sitting in a subway. Okay? The reality underneath this is we have this fiction that traffic will disappear. It won't. It won't. Traffic is going to be part of Los Angeles because LA has a car culture. And even the people who come here, because public transportation is mass transportation. I remember I said something to Stephanie when we had lunch one day. I said, I think all the buses should be free. If we want to help people, make the buses free and work on bus routes and make the buses a little bigger and deal with the fact of how we move people around. Trains are no solution. If you sat in a room as a rational person and said, well, I've got 20 years of history showing that if we build it, they will come. That ridership meets the numbers we project, that the revenue we generate is what we project. Here's a really stupid question, just to go back to the trains and then I'll answer yours. Let's suppose this costs $35 billion. How much a year are we going to have to pay to subsidize? What's it going to cost to ride? 50 bucks? 100 bucks? Did anybody bother to figure that out? I mean, the level of stupidity is, in my world, 2 follows 1. Not 5, it follows 1. And 3 follows 2. So the question is, who would I get? I'd get some of the smartest minds I could and put them in a room and say, how do we figure out tomorrow? And how do we make LA cool again? And how do we take mass transportation and figure it out? And it ain't by digging a tunnel. The woman who talked about the earth moving, one good earthquake in the 20 years it takes to build, kiss the project goodbye. This is not about the public. This is about full employment for the people who work for Metro. We need to stop the crap that we think this is going to be better for the city. It isn't. And it's another example of leeches feeding off the people who take care of the city. And let me be clear about something, and because you opened the door and I appreciate that. Our council representative, Yaroslav Katie, I don't care who you're friends with. If she wants to be friends with Nithya, great. She helps a campaign and Nithya wants to dig the tunnel under our community. Mm-hmm. Where is the logic in that? There is no logic. The logic is this: I can't tell anybody what to think, and I can't tell anybody what they should think. This is what I think. The community supports me. That's what they think. So ultimately, I personally think that you need some of the brightest minds in a room figuring out tomorrow. What we have are idiots who were figuring out yesterday.
All right, Ms. Templeton, and then we're going to go to public comment.
I actually had it was less a question for Fred. And Fred, I do, though I disagree with you, I do empathize with your frustration with the city and trying to get answers out of Metro. So I do I do share your frustration on many things. I disagree with the solution. That's all. But I do have answers for Nikki about emergency exits, and also wanted to point out that Japan is a very earthquake-prone country, and they don't have any problem running trains through tunnels. They seem to have figured out the safety aspect of it. But with respect to the
Sorry.
with respect to the emergency exits and that sort of thing, that I just researched it briefly, and the NTSB requires crossovers every 800 feet and a minimum of every 800 feet. And I believe it's every 850 feet, either an escape hatch or a safe room, and a safe section is what is mostly used in long tunnels. And it's basically an area with its own ventilation and power sources and that sort of thing, where people get evacuated to until it's safe to be evacuated out by the regular trains.
So somebody who lives in a private home is going to have an evacuation thing where 25 or 500 people are going to walk out of the subway.
No, it's underground where the subway or where the train is. It's underground, and it's a separate area that has its own ventilation system until they solve whatever problem is happening in the fire or whatever it is, and then they evacuate people out on the tracks.
I've been in Japan, I've been in China, and the way those people behave, the way that they build, they don't build like we do. China built monorails in 2 or 3 years.
But that's what they have. That safety protocol is also what they have in Switzerland.
Right, and in Japan, I've been in Japan and I've been on the trains. I've not been on the subways, but I've been on the trains, go all over the country, and they're fast and they're clean, and people take care of it. But that's not who we are. I mean, we have graffiti towers. I mean, we're a goddamn mess.
I was speaking about the earthquake safety aspect of it.
Yeah, but my point is this: anytime you do something, you go to a doctor. Would you go to a doctor who the last 7 patients they had, he got sued for malpractice? No. You can't trust these people. You can't have some magical thing that all of a sudden these people are going to be capable. Their prior record stinks. And the answer is they can't be trusted. So you can make any argument you want about Japan or China, and I probably agree with you, but not this group.
But isn't it Bechtel and BYD that are building it, and not Metro?
Well, let me ask you a question. Metro takes the position they don't build anything. So if BYD or Bechtel are building this, how come on every project that's been done in the last 25 years, we're over budget and not on time and miss ridership projections? So Metro lies about the ridership projections. They don't. Here's a perfect example of why they can't be trusted, straight up, and from them. Last year, because I don't know the lines, so this was a couple of years ago, they closed down the construction on one of the subways they were building because they said it was unsafe. Okay. Except here's the prelude. They spent 2 years writing letters. This is real. If something's unsafe, you walk in, you go, fix it in 24 hours or I shut you down until you fix it. You don't write letters for 2 years. These people are incompetent. And you know what I learned? Never trust people like that. So no matter what you say and the logic of what you have, it's all in the hands of those people who are going to be in charge and oversee it. I would trust Peter Carter. They all think we're morons. They behave like trust fund babies where the money's not going to run out, because when we ask that idiot Sosa, where's the money going to come from? Oh, Measure M. Measure M is going to pay for $100 billion of stuff when they get whatever they get, and their budget's $9 billion a year. Their answer to everything, when you say to them, and the woman who they fired or who left, Jody Litvak, who was the most obnoxious civil servant I have ever encountered in my life, and she left at the end of last year. Somebody said, well, where's the money going to come from? And she goes, well, we hope to get it. What the hell is that? See, here's the problem. I know too much about this. And in the end, it's complicated for the public, and they bet on the public not understanding, which is how they get away with what they get away with.
All righty. So now we're going to open up public comment. So if you have attended tonight, please raise your hand and I will call on you and I will give you an opportunity to speak based on what we've discussed tonight. First person up I see is Maureen Levinson. Gonna unmute. Miss Levinson.
You have to unmute.
I got muted again. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's nice to see you again, Fred. Thank you for your speech. I attended both. There were community meetings by Bechtel and BYD back in 2024, and I took some notes. And I want to go over a couple of them. My impression was, after listening to these two companies, it's basically a 20 billion, the subway is a 20 billion money grab by UCLA to benefit the university, while the monorail can be timely built with the 8 billion budget that can carry as many passengers as the underground. Angelenos would be better served to have a monorail from the Valley to LAX with stops at Westwood and UCLA and connect easily with the above ground LAX people mover. The monorail will not interfere with Metro's plans for the express lanes through the Sepulveda Pass. And according to Metro's January 2023 public meeting regarding the confusing capacity versus ridership, the monorail has 35% higher passenger capacity per hour than subways. Now, Metro uses a model that assumes higher ridership. However, Metro will not share their modeling assumptions for this determination. The fact is the monorail has a higher frequency and higher capacity than the subways. And there's an argument that the subway can go up to 75 miles per hour, but the reality is it will not reach that speed end to end due to geographic and safety considerations. So basically, the subway higher capacity can be disputed because the monorail has a 35% higher passenger capacity. The monorail can connect easily with the LAX above ground people mover. The monorail will not interfere with Metro's plans for an express lanes through the Sepulveda Pass. The monorail will have space for bikes. The subway will cost billions just to go to UCLA and will stop at UCLA and will not continue to LAX because that's phase one, according to Bechtel. Phase one. So when we asked, well, what happens from UCLA to LAX? They go, well, that's phase two, and we haven't discussed that yet. And those are my notes. That's why I'm for the monorail.
Thank you so much, Ms. Levinson. Next person that I'm going to call on to speak is James Enstrom.
Unmute, James.
Hello. I want to thank Fred for his comments. They're tremendous. I've read Fred and also Bob Anderson for years, and I agree with everything that they've said. I've been a Bel-Air resident for almost 40 years, and I've had a scientific career at UCLA that goes back 50 years. And I believe I can help in getting UCLA to understand the problems here, especially if they're benefiting financially from this. I had a conversation with their mobility planner named David Korwowski, and I asked to meet in his office at UCLA, and he said he'd prefer to do it by Zoom, just like this meeting. So I've never met him in person, but I believe that a very strong case could be made that no faculty, no staff, and no students at UCLA are going to use a Metro the way it's designed here. It just takes too much time and it's too difficult to make the transfers from the metro to the vehicles that get you to actually where you want to go. And I think that it's just a travesty. I mean, the time that I've lived in this city, I've never seen it this bad. It's just not just this issue, but virtually every issue. That supports what Fred said also. So anyway, I'm going to do what I can to deal with a couple of officials, especially Michael Beck. Michael Beck has a very responsible position at UCLA, and he's not behaving the way he should. And UCLA is having financial problems itself right now. So they may be more responsive than they have been in the past to correcting this situation with Metro. Thank you.
By the way, there's one thing I want to add, because I think it's kind of funny, that speaks to conflicts of interest, which ultimately we'll, at some point, we'll get into. The problem with what I've learned, it's like peeling an onion. Every time there's another layer. So when I talked to James De La Loza, who was the former project manager, I said, didn't you leave Metro? He said, yeah, I did. I said, and didn't you go to the company that drew the lines? I did. And then didn't you come back to Metro? Yeah. And then wasn't that company picked to do some of the environmental study? And he got very nervous and he said, but there's no conflict of interest. We have very strict rules. Do you believe that? I don't. You deal with your friends. You deal with where your relationships are. It's a rat's nest. I know exactly what I'm saying. I've written it. If they didn't like it, I'm sure I would have heard from them. Well, you know, in the end, to show you what a terrible organization they are, was that after we took Sosa's deposition, and after it was published by the court, I took the deposition and circulated it to our community. And their lawyers complained in front of the judge that I did that. Well, it's a public record. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in your opinion. They're not interested in being transparent. And I talked to 2 different board members. 2 or 3, I can't remember. And each of them said the same thing. Metro's not very transparent. It's very hard to get information from them. Is that some kind of joke? It's public money. It's Measure M. Every one of you contributes, and they're sitting in a room and they're not accountable. Believe me, and I'm not running for mayor because I ain't sleeping in the garage. But if we had a real mayor and we had a real leader, Stephanie's head would be in another place and not getting a new contract. And what we would do is say, wait, let's go spend, not give her a contract for $450 so we can have her picture taken. Let us go spend $1 million, get a real executive, put him in charge with the understanding he can fire whoever he wants and bring in people who want to work. He'd pay for himself in less than 6 months. That's a hard reality. And to tell you the truth, because, you know, I'll answer if anybody else has any questions, I'm really sorry I know all this. I really am. This was not what I expected when I started. It's frightening to me. And that's why the city's broke. And we're woke. We're broke and woke. And I call it Los Angeles, L-O-S-T, because half the people, all the people on this phone care. You pay your taxes, you take care of your family, you're good, responsible people, and we're basically screwed over by the people who represent us. That's what I think.
All right, the next person I'm going to call on is Charisse Fisher. Ms. Fisher?
You have to unmute Charisse.
How about now? Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, it's Michael Fisher. Sharice's
Sorry about that.
Anyway, this has been very enlightening conversation for me, because the specifics of this were never really in public discourse outside of these small micro communities. What are we doing in terms of public outreach, in terms of getting on the air, in terms of making people aware of how much money they're talking about, in terms of drawing the analogies between this and the train to nowhere? And when I hear that a solution like a monorail can be done for far less money in a fraction of the time, my head explodes. Who is, the real question is, who is profiting by continuing forward with this boondoggle? And when that answer,
that's the question of the day. And I'm really, if I tell you how happy I am that you said that, it's full employment for the employees of Metro.
yeah, well, that's the tail wagging the dog, isn't it?
You heard what I said.
So how do we get this in the hands of right-minded people to say we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore?
Basically, what I would do, among other things, and to the extent, is you have to raise your hand, write to Katie, write to the mayor, write to UCLA, let them know that, you know, that Bel-Air is not sitting off by itself. You have to say, listen, what you're talking about, based on history, makes no sense. And the more of you who raise your hand and raise your voice and let your friends and neighbors know, that will have an impact. Metro assumed the following. Metro assumes we will roll over. I can't wait to see that. I think we're getting 300 documents that they withheld from us, including emails. Now, here's my question. What are they afraid of? What's in those emails? What's in those documents? And I'll tell you what I think that is in them. They don't want you to know what's in them, or they don't want us, all of us, to know what's in them, because they show the contempt for our community. And when I say that, for all of you.
Well, here's the bottom line, though. If we don't stand up for ourselves, we can expect no one else to stand up for us. If you're waiting for Katie Yaroslavsky to stand up for you, forget that. If you're waiting for the UCLA boards to step up, forget that. Why don't we mobilize as a community? And let me say something really out of the box here. Get off our asses and put ourselves on the corner of Wilshire and Veteran, like everybody else who wants to have a voice in this city does. And until we're willing to do that, and repeatedly do that, then no one's going to listen or no one's going to care.
Well, we can also, if there's any media people on this, we can make videos that we can stick on YouTube, which we can then circulate to all our friends and the city council. And the reality is this, the board's got a tough decision. Now, the mayor told me if this costs $30 billion, this is when I was talking to her, that they wouldn't spend the money. But I don't believe any of these people. And anybody who's got a good idea, I'm all for. All I can do, I mean, I've spent an inordinate amount of time on this. And by the way, my time is gratis. I write my check like everybody else in the community. And I do this because I have the time. I care about the city. And I'm appalled at the behavior. I'm appalled by it. And the reality underneath it is, you know, when Caruso lost, here's part of the problem, Michael. I did the math. 2.2 million people registered to vote in Los Angeles. You can look this up. 900,000 people voted on ULA, or 850 or something, and less than 1 million voted for mayor. President was about 1.3 million. We don't vote.
Yeah.
We don't vote. So you get the government you deserve.
Right.
Let me be clear just on a separate note. When I said before I wasn't kidding about defunding the city council, Anybody can protest. This is America. I believe in that wholeheartedly. You block the freeway, you get arrested. You spend the night in jail. You have no right to impact other people's lives. You have a right to have your voice heard, but you don't have a right to do that. If you go to a city council meeting, all they do is scream and curse and carry on. And they think the louder they speak, the better it is. Michael Schneider's a perfect example of that. Big moron. Streets for all. Let's do this. I don't care what it takes. I'm a zealot. I'm going to do this. So one day I called him up and I lit him up. And then he did something even dumber. And I called him up and said, Michael, why don't you and I have lunch? Let's go talk quietly. We'll go somewhere in a public place and have a real conversation so you understand the impact of what you're trying to do. And you know what his answer was? No, I'm not going to change your mind. Well, you want to be a moron? Great, that's the choice. I'm sure he'll read this and see it. But what's underneath it is this. You're right. You got to tell your friends. The Bel-Air community is pretty united in this. The Sherman Oaks community is pretty united in this. And all of us have to do whatever we can to put pressure on the city government. And I will think of ways that we can do it and pass it along to Travis. But I think to the extent that the neighborhood council raises the issues in a way that requires answers would set them back a bit. I mean, for real. I mean, Duane knows this at UCLA. When Michael sent a letter advocating for this, he said to me, well, we already met with you. And guess what? That was a lie. Because Travis said meeting with the neighborhood council is not the same thing as meeting with Bel-Air, and you never met with Bel-Air, and Michael got embarrassed. But the answer is, if you're dealing with people who can't tell the truth and stand up for who they are, you're dealing with weak, scared, inept people who unfortunately have the power of the checkbook. And you have a newspaper here that doesn't give a crap. We don't have a real newspaper here who would hold these people accountable and really look at this from a point of view of what old newspapers could do, which is basically investigative reporting, and just hammer them so that there's public pressure. So, you know, we're a diverse city. It's hard.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to know, you have another hand up, and then there's
Right.
two questions in the Q&A that I can read if you'd like those.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to do one more question from the public, and then we're going to go through some Q&A questions. So we have Shelby Blecker. And then we have another person who just raised their hand, Stephen Son. So Shelby Blecker.
Hi, thank you, Jamie, for recognizing me. Shelby Blecker speaking on my own behalf and not part of any organization that I am a member of. I wanted to make 2 points. First of all, when people start talking about paradoxes or whatever the new name is that refers to induced demand, I never hear them talk about latent demand, which basically is in rapidly growing areas where roads were not designed for the current population. There may be a great deal of latent demand for new road capacity, which causes a flood of new drivers to immediately take to the freeway once the lanes are opened up, clogging them up again. So why don't you talk about latent demand before you talk about induced demand, and understand that you do have a lot of people that are living here. We're way overbuilt, we're way too densified, and so on and so forth. Now, to Fred's point, when you talk about, and other people's point, when you talk about how do we get the word out there, and you're talking about Michael Schneider. Well, if you remember Measure HLA, Michael, with the help of some very wealthy billionaires, went to the colleges and advertised to these college students, hey, go out and get signatures for me. $2 per signature. Get 40 names, get $80. Get 100 names, get $200. The kids didn't even understand what Measure HLA was, but they got over 150,000 voters to get the measure on the ballot. And then they started the misinformation campaign that basically told not lies, but, distorted facts. And that's their method. That's been their method forever. When I started getting involved with neighborhood politics, it was because of Uplift Melrose. And Michael Schneider and those people said, we have overwhelming support. Well, they advertised the poll to their friends, which gave them 321 people. That was their overwhelming support. But on Nextdoor, they refused to recognize and acknowledge that over 800 people took a poll and said, no, we don't want this. So you've got to get more people involved. You've got to find a way to talk to more residents and get more residents involved. And Fred knows that, and we all know that. It's just hard because of voter apathy. So those are my points that I wanted to make. Thank you for my time.
Shelby, one thing. Any of you who can put together a group of people, I'll spend an hour with them. Okay? If you want. Because I agree with you. In the end, the loudest voices in this city do not represent the majority in this city. They're just the loudest. And most of us go back to our lives. If I was working, I don't think I would have had the time to do this. I think the thing that has shocked me the most, and that's appalling, is basically the abdication of responsibility of the city politicians. All of them. And, it's like the reservoir. The reservoir was really interesting. If you can empty a reservoir, there are two questions you ask. One, if you're going to empty it, okay, have you ordered the parts you need to fill it, and how long will it be down? You don't empty it until you have those answers. Not, oh, let's scramble it because we had the fire and let's fix it. Two, Metro puts out a survey. So they put out this bullshit survey that says people want the subway instead of the monorail. So being who I am and a pain in the ass, I call the survey company. And I say to them, can you tell me who gave you the questions? The answer was no. Metro gave it. We're not allowed to give out that information. So if I say to you, I want you to understand this, because surveys can be skewed any way you want. You want the train or the monorail? Oh, people go, I want the train. But that's not the next question. The next question is, if the train's going to cost $30 billion and the monorail's going to cost $6 billion, and you can have the monorail built in 5 years and the train built in 25, does that change your answer? But they don't ask those questions. So in the end, every survey they put out is bullshit, and it's skewed for them to get the answers they want. Simple. Anyway, and your points are well taken. And if you can put together a group of 5, 10, 10, 15 people, I'll spend an hour with them.
Great. All right. The next person that we have in the public comment or in the general public that would like to ask a question is Stephen Song.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Mr. Rosen, thank you very much. I want to acknowledge and thank you for your candor. I know you're a New Yorker. My dad was a New Yorker. I'm born and raised here in LA. And I have to tell you, I share a lot of your frustration and outrage over the city. The city does a lot of things wrong, and I don't disagree with you on that. I want to say respectfully, and I am the chair of the Westwood Community Council. I'm speaking tonight as an individual. I'm also a founding member of STC for All. I do want to correct a statement that you made, Mr. Rosen. I am one of the founders of STC for All. We are 100% not a lobbying group for Metro. That's what you said. I have no idea where you got that information. I can assure you, I have never spoken to Metro once, except sometimes at a meeting, I try to speak to them the way you and Mr. Anderson do, but we have no involvement with Metro. So please don't tell people we're a lobbying group for Metro. That is completely not true. I have no idea where you got that, and you're a smart guy, and I know you want to have facts. I do want to ask a couple questions, sir.
Go ahead.
I've heard you talk, and Mr. Anderson, I heard his presentation, and you focus a lot on the cost, and that is extremely important. But Fred, you're an attorney. The name of this is the Draft Environmental Impact Report, DEIR. And the DEIR by law, which we can't change, looks at probably 60 or 80 different environmental aspects: light, water, vibrations, noise, wildlife impacts, trees, riparian issues, etc. It's just a fact of the law, sir, that a DEIR does not consider how something is financed. That's just an absolute fact. And Travis, who's a very bright guy and knows CEQA law probably better than anyone on this call, I think can confirm. So the focus on finances is honestly misplaced in this environmental review. I did hear you say that you felt that any of the tunnels would have a very bad impact on the Hotel Bel-Air. My sister was married at the Hotel Bel-Air. I would never want anything bad to happen to the Hotel Bel-Air. No one on this call wants that. I don't want anything bad to happen to your home or your neighbors in Lower Bel-Air. But I'd like to ask, have you retained experts, whether they're seismologists or hydrologists or scientists or engineers, to challenge the findings in this DEIR? Because the findings, according to this 21,000-page document, is they have concluded that all three of the tunnels, the one for all three monorail, the tunnel for 4 and 5 Bechtel, and the tunnel for 6, which is Metro's project, they're concluding that all of those tunnels can be built and operated safely, and with mitigations, the impacts are less than significant, which is the legal standard. So I'd like to understand from you, sir, where did they get that wrong? Let me please finish. Let me just get the rest of that, because there's a lot here. We heard with the purple line, believe me, sir, we went through this in our community, and I know you made some very not so nice statements about Westwood. I don't want to get into that. We love our neighbors in Bel-Air, want to keep this very professional, not personal. But when the purple line was being built, sir, Metro came to us and said, hey, Westwood neighbors, in order to get the Wilshire subway or the purple line up from Century City back up to Wilshire Boulevard to Wilshire Westwood and onto the VA, they said, we pretty much have to go under Westwood. And I want to tell you, sir, our neighbors had many of the same concerns and reactions that your Bel-Air neighbors did. They were concerned about, what does this mean for my property? Is my foundation going to crack? Am I going to be, awakened in the middle of the night with the sound of a rumbling train? Are grandma's teacups going to be rattling in the china cabinet? And I can assure you, sir, we went through this process. But when it was all said and done, Metro brought their scientists out, their engineers, and that tunnel, sir, I can tell you, was built under Westwood. We did not hear one peep. The neighborhood council, the community council, Sandy Brown's homeowners, nobody heard a peep. The tunnel was built and literally not one person spoke up about it. And interestingly, during COVID, when they were digging and doing the subway station for Rodeo and Wilshire, the Beverly Hills folks that, as you know, viciously fought the project, at least the small group Lisa Korbatoff, they went to Metro and said, now listen, Metro, you need to tell us when you're tunneling under Beverly High, because we want to monitor it very carefully. We want to make sure that nothing bad happens. And I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know what Metro said to them. They said, we've already finished that tunneling. We're on our way to Rodeo. The tunneling under Beverly High, sir, occurred, and literally the neighbors did not feel it, did not know it, did not see it. So I really would like to ask you, sir, what are the impacts environmentally, not financially, but environmentally, that you believe are going to be bad for your neighbors?
All right. Well, let's do something before we even get to the environment. I think, and I want to be direct with you, because I appreciate, and if you're not funded by UCLA, I will clearly not say that again. But it's unmitigated bullshit, that, and pardon my language, that you talk about a project that you don't know what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take to build. Those are threshold questions. How can you advocate for something when you don't know those two basic facts? That's part one. Two is, no one trusts what's happened in your community. Take a look at it. It's an embarrassment. Three, I'm not a scientist. But I've had people who look at this. Let me explain something. And you talked about Beverly Hills. The initial route in Beverly Hills was to go down Santa Monica Boulevard, where all the rich homes were. And they moved it to Pico and went under the high school. So they moved it because there was pressure not to build there. In this DEIR, which lies about numbers, you cannot tell me that they're using 2023 numbers when they have 2025 numbers, that it's not deceitful and misleading. There's nothing you can tell me that isn't true in what I'm saying. But then buried in this is the following: vibrations and noise. And they go vibrations and noise within acceptable levels. And you know how they figure out acceptable levels? They take an hour. So when the train's not running, there's no noise. When the train's running, you do hear noise and vibrations, and then they take an average and say it's less than, it meets the standard. So every time a train goes under somebody's house, you're going to hear it. Because when the train comes out in Lower Bel-Air, it's 30 feet underground. It's delusional to think anything else. Okay? Secondly, and I have this, I got to get my glasses. We pulled this out. I'm going to get this. All of these results are basically averages. None of them with underground that says we're going to leave the community the way it was, which has no vibrations and has no noise. And let me do the following. Any noise and any vibration has one word: unacceptable and non-starter. And in all due respect to you, because I think you're a well-meaning guy, and I wish Westwood could return to the way it was when I got here, I look at the mess that you're in. How'd that happen?
Mr. Rosen, unlike Michael Schneider, sir, I'll meet you for lunch and we can talk about it. That's a complicated question that has really nothing to do with this discussion, but I'm happy to have that conversation with you.
And yes, I'm happy to meet you for lunch, but I'm telling you the following. I'm not interested in they think what's acceptable. Here's the amount of noise and vibration that's acceptable to our community. None. Period. So you're asking a community that is the serious tax base for this city and a wallet for anybody who needs any money to say, okay, look, we're going to dig under your homes. We're going to impact the hillside. The vibrations and the noise is acceptable. You get no tangible benefit out of this. And we expect you to roll over for UCLA and Westwood because there were women on the table. My response to that, the first word would be go, and I'm sure you can figure out the next two. So I'm not kidding about this. There is no way you can justify that, and there is no way we will accept it, period. And when you take what they did in Beverly Hills, which everybody throws in my face, well, going down Pico is a real road. The fact of the matter is it's a public transit, and it did go under the high school, and they were able to mitigate what they did there. And a high school is not a residential community. And this is LA. So what do you think? I walk on the streets in New York. Walk on the streets, you hear the noise. Everybody who's near Metro hates it. I don't know who you're talking to, but I've gotten 50 calls from people who've talked about the construction of Metro, when they're involved, what they do, how they behave. I wouldn't trust them to cross the street, period. What I learned from you, which I'm sorry about, is that I was told that whatever it's called, STC for All, was a front organization for UCLA. If it's not the case, I apologize.
Sir, what you said it was a front organization for Metro. It's definitely not that, but we're not a front organization for UCLA.
No, I heard
there's almost 100 organizations.
What I said was you're a lobbyist organization for UCLA. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Okay.
And I apologize. But I'm not wrong about anything else. And the answer here
I just want to say, and Mr. Hall, if you could give me 30 seconds to respond, and I really appreciate this. This is an important conversation. Mr. Rosen, I would not want any damage to your homes in Lower Bel-Air. I will tell you that, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not a seismologist. There's a lot of people smarter than me on these issues. I had understood, and I have understood, that with the mitigations, in terms of the speeds of the trains as it approaches the campus, as it goes under Lower Bel-Air, that the trains would be slower. And I agree with you, sir. There shouldn't be vibrations and shouldn't be noise. And I know that when the Red Line was built, there were similar concerns. You know, they did tunnel through the Santa Monica Mountains, and to my knowledge, not a single homeowner has ever sued Metro for any noise or vibrations. There's even a sound lab in Hollywood that has exquisitely calibrated sound instrumentation. They were very concerned, and they still function to this day. And that's with like super sensitive sound equipment for Hollywood. And the tunnel goes right underneath the sound lab. So there should not be vibrations under your home. I agree with you.
Let me read this to you, because this is right out of that report. Vibration as a result of rail operations, they're talking about the fasteners and stuff they use, would be reduced to below the applicable FBA vibration criteria. The answer is, I'm not interested in what's below it. I don't want any of it. I'm not interested in what some clod in some engineering who drew lines under our homes without asking us to determine what's acceptable noise and vibrations. Here's the amount that's acceptable. NONE. Nothing. And if they can't figure it out, when no one has answered to me yet, and I've asked them 5 times and they won't answer, why don't you go down to 405? If it's 90 feet and it's not going to make any goddamn noise, go down to 405 and make a left on Sunset. And the answer is, I don't know, because they won't tell me.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in the interest of maybe elaborating on this point here, which there's also a question in the chat about it, what would happen if this were built tunnel under, you know, what would be the impact? Do you mind, Jamie, if I share my screen?
Let's just, so it's
share my screen and just
right
show
now.
everybody so that we know what the EIR says, at least in summary, about this particular question.
So it's 8:26 right now. We're going to entering our kind of concluding thoughts here, and Dr. Longcore is going to share this information, and then we're going to probably conclude shortly.
Right. So this is the online version of the DEIR, and this is just going to this question of what does it say will happen? Noise and vibration construction impacts. Right. So during construction, impacts before mitigation, and the columns here are options 1 and 3, 1 and 3, alt 1, blah, blah, blah. And I hope I've got this is for the maintenance and storage facility, just as to give you an example of where they are. And I could look around and we could find the others here, but as you go through what the EIR will tell us, and we can go track these down for these individual questions that are of concern to different communities, is whether something's potentially significant, PS. I'm sorry, I haven't found exactly the right spot, but this is just to illustrate what we should be looking at if we want to comment on this based on what's in the EIR. And then it says these are all these options for this maintenance facility potentially significant. These are mitigation measures that they'd require. And then many times it will say SU, and SU means significant and unavoidable. And so, or LTS, that's less than significant. So anytime you go through here, and we can sort this through and find it for different aspects of the project, they're going to tell us whether by these standards, which, and Fred's absolutely right, they average out the noise and vibration over a period of time. And I've complained about that in EIRs and EISs for 20 years because it doesn't really reflect how wildlife in my particular area of expertise responds to these sorts of things, or people, frankly, are disturbed in that way as well. But we can go and track down every one and figure out whether they're less than significant, even if you accept their standards, or whether they're significant and unavoidable. And so that's just to focus us. This is the kind of thing that we should dig into as you take information from different communities and formulate a comment on it.
Okay, so I think it is 8:28. I think we have received ample committee questions. We've received a significant amount of comment from the public. Nikki, if you can do it real quickly, because it's 8:29 right now. Do you have one other thing you'd like to add?
She's muted. She's still muted.
Okay.
Okay, now I just want to remind people that the mountains are different than the flats, that a lot of this information comes from what took place in the flats. The mountains are different in many, many different aspects we can't go into right now, but they're not the flats. They have a different setup. They have a different everything. And that needs to be I'll take an analogy is immigrants. There's legal immigrants and there's illegal immigrants. They're not one batch. Well, the same thing. All this tunneling and everything else is not one batch between the flats and the hills. And that's a separate situation altogether, and people need to recognize it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and probably conclude tonight's meeting. We didn't get to the last agenda item, which was the committee work. Unfortunately, the topic went on far longer. Ms. Templeton?
Just before we conclude, just going forward, is there any way that we could get an independent, like transit specialist to maybe answer a bunch of these questions or transit expert that would be able to answer some of the questions that a lot of us have, so we could get some actual, like, knowledgeable facts, facts from a knowledgeable person?
Let me explain something. My facts are knowledgeable. My facts are straight to the point, and we can either deal with reality or fantasy. First of all, I want to finish by saying I thank all of you for the time and for listening. But the reality of this is a delusional project that is never going to happen. So they spent $300 million doing these things. And while the gentleman while Stephen said we don't have to worry about costs now, of course you do.
It wasn't directed at you. That the comment was not directed at you. I just think that there's questions that we're asking that we don't know the answer to, and somebody who was an expert in this type of transit might know the answers. I mean, like as an example, that the requirements for emergency exits, and that's some of the other things that we've discussed, and the seismic protections that happen around the world. And I'm not necessarily saying somebody from Metro; it could be somebody from anywhere. We're doing this by Zoom. If we could find such a person.
Well, I don't think they're going to send someone to one of our neighborhood council meetings. They're doing these little like informational sessions. I really doubt that. I agree, it would be very useful, but finding someone with the expertise who would do it for free, good luck with that.
I will contribute towards paying them.
Well, just reading is helpful, right?
I will contribute $250. Anybody else want to contribute? And then maybe we'll get enough for somebody to spend an hour talking to us. And
let me put it like this. Our community spent $1 million. And let me put this in perspective. This is a $30 billion project that $3 or $4 million will keep it in the courts for 10 years. This is never going to happen. So why don't we just deal with the reality of that and then figure out how we solve the problem? Because solutions under our community with any level of vibrations and any level of noise is totally unacceptable. And for you to think about this is, you think you'd like that under your house?
I would be okay with it. I grew up in New York City. I work in my office is in New York City, right on Lexington Avenue, right over the subway, and I don't feel a darn thing. If they want to tunnel under my house, have at it.
Great. I grew up in New York, and the one thing that I made sure when I started to make money is I took my grandparents away from living near the subway or living near the L. So we all have different views of it.
The L is an elevated train. That's not a subway.
Well, but it still made a lot of noise that you heard.
Because it's elevated, it's not a subway. It's an outdoor train.
Okay, so let's do this. Actually, I'm going to take back something I said here. I think it would be prudent for us to spend just 10 minutes to ask ourselves to take some notes from what we learned tonight because otherwise we're going to completely forget about it. So I'm going to share my screen right now. I'm going to thank Fred for coming. Really appreciate it. You said you would take 15 minutes and you filled the 2 hours, and that's great. And we appreciate it. And it was a good discussion. So we're going to go ahead and do what we did last time. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to ask people to give me their thoughts so that I can take some notes. And remember, what we're trying to do here is isolate the big picture topics that we think need to be in the comment letter based on the conversation that we had tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to spend just 10 to 15 minutes doing this, even though it's kind of late. So this is what we worked on last week. And so we had topics to include already. So what did we learn tonight that we want to add to our Miss Templeton?
Oh, it's a legacy hand. I'm sorry, but
legacy hand.
But I did see under should there be a stop at the Getty, and I think we said in a perfect world that I mean not we because I watched it on tape, but in a perfect world there should be a stop at the Getty, but not at all costs.
Well, I can obviously one thing that we've learned tonight, and part of our role as a neighborhood council is to take input from affected communities, right? And so it seems to me that I'm hearing fierce opposition from the Bel-Air community. So I think that would be a fair thing to put in the comment letter, right?
No, from a part of the Bel-Air community, because our neighborhood and the Bel-Air Hills is also
Okay.
the Bel-Air community.
From, what do you call it, Lower Bel-Air?
Bel-Air.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, what's happening here?
Uh-oh.
Hello, what's going on?
Something's pressing on your keyboard, I think.
I don't know. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. Oh, no.
What is happening?
Me, you're leaning on the keyboard.
Yeah, obviously, that's so weird. What is going on?
You're leaning on your keyboard.
Hey, I'm just gonna like stop the screen sharing, and we're gonna try close this, leave sites, and then we're gonna start this over again. Okay, that was very strange.
Do you need me anymore for this, or can I?
No, we're good. Thank you.
I want to add one thing.
Yes.
For all of you, and then I'm gone, and I thank you for the time. Last week, there was an article about a train station that Metro has been building. One train station for a stop, 8 years, and it's not finished. How any of you can think that you can trust these morons to do anything exceeds my level of intelligence. So with that, I appreciate everybody listening. If Steve, you want to meet, just ask Travis how to get a hold of me. I'm happy to have lunch with you. The reality underneath this is I care about the city and our future. And I wish all of you would also. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Fred. We appreciate it.
Thank you and bless you, Fred.
All right, so here's what I'm putting in here. We got notes from the August 4th, 2025 meeting with Fred Rosen as guest speaker. Opposition from Lower Bel-Air community. I think it's okay to say fierce. What else? I think we heard, this is probably a restatement of what happened last week, but major concerns about, this maybe financing, whether or not it's financially feasible.
And confidence of Metro.
Right. That's obviously misspelled. And then financial feasibility. I don't know if I call them concerns, just like strong belief that the project is not financially feasible.
And I believe there was conflict of interest issues as well.
Management and design issues.
Lack of trust. That was like a major theme.
Well, along those lines, it has it's a fantasy to have these safe rooms, houses, or whatever within the tunnel.
We have them all over the world, Nikki.
But what else did because Fred was speaking on behalf of the Bel-Air Association and Keep Bel-Air Beautiful. I mean, I don't know exactly, but he was representing that stakeholder group. So what else do we feel that?
Well, then do you want to change the Lower Bel-Air community to the Bel-Air Association and Keep Bel-Air Beautiful?
That was just I'm not being super precise about that.
All over the world, there's ways to get out to the street level. It's a different thing being buried in a tunnel.
No, there's trains that go through tunnels much longer. The Goddard Tunnel is 35 miles long. I'll send you a video. And they don't have escape routes to the top.
Oh, the other thing I heard is that they're not. No amount of noise and vibration is acceptable. They're not really concerned about whether or not it's significant or not.
I would add to that, just using Fred's words.
That's correct.
All subways are non-starters. His words, think that speaks for his position pretty succinctly.
Yeah,
Years of litigation.
if I could just chime in, Jonathan Brand here, Bel-Air Association. Any tunneling under Bel-Air is categorically categorically opposed to that. Any tunneling under Bel-Air whatsoever. I think Fred made that pretty clear.
And they're promising years of litigation.
And you, as a representative of that community, you can speak to that clearly.
And it's okay for our letter, by the way, to just say we had these meetings. We had a lot of attendees. We received X number of comments. And this is the information that we received. It is entirely okay for us to put that just factual stuff in the letter. It doesn't mean that the full neighborhood council is gonna like say that they subscribe to all of that, but it's okay for us to acknowledge that we received that input.
I think it's important documentation. Can I add another little thing, since it's come up about this question of accessing the tunnel? There is one option, option 6, that would build a ventilation shaft / escape in the middle of the mountains. And it would be located on the east side of Stone Canyon Reservoir. And it would be a rather substantial structure above ground there that then would be visible within the Stone Canyon view shed from everybody who lives on Stradella and Upper Bel-Air. So that would be a visual impact and obviously a biological impact in that area because it would be built over existing walnut woodland. But that is the one of the tunneling options that has an actual shaft that goes up to the surface associated with it. The others are built in such a way, and I think if you go back and listen to Bob Anderson's presentation, they're built in such a way where there is not a escape hatch that goes up, but rather other means of safety that's governed by federal regulation.
Okay, other themes, big picture themes, input that we heard. And it could also be, by the way, not just from Fred, but other people that spoke tonight. So there were other speakers that had perspectives that we want to denote.
Yep, and we didn't get to all of the things that went in the Q&A, but one of them was, has anyone researched the groundwater that will be affected by the project? According to our biologist, this is a significant groundwater source, but unfortunately there's no name associated with it, so we don't know who who ours is.
Bruno Naylor.
Could have been. And then question for
other comments.
Yeah.
From it could
And
either be
there-
committee members or members of the public. So yes.
Yeah, and that there are people in Upper Bel-Air on the call who oppose the subway as well. So
Who were those people in Upper?
you can look in the Q&A. It's Hans and Jenny.
Manglestar.
The Manglestars. Okay.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Lawrence.
No, please. I was going to go through my notes and add whatever else.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. I think that there was also some discussion about, it sounded like to me, Fred's position was that the suitable outcomes, the desired outcomes for him were either no project or the monorail. And in the no project scenario, going back to the drawing boards and looking at future technology, I don't know if
that's a good one. A suitable outcome was either.
I don't think he was. I don't think it was it was possibly the monorail. He was not supporting a monorail one. It was.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry if that was unclear.
I think he basically said to start over because of trust.
Yes. I was just throwing that in there because that's the other.
And look at future technology.
Yeah.
Bob
I think it's
Anderson is against the monorail.
Believes that Metro should look at new technologies.
Future technologies, I think.
Lack of parking.
Yeah.
Yes.
at stations, right?
Yes.
It's also suggesting that they build another elevated highway above the 405 or
Put electric buses on it.
I also brought up the underground water several times.
Go ahead, Mr. Lawrence, did you have additional notes?
Yeah, he wants electric buses on the above the 405.
I will keep looking and nothing at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Sandler? You're muted. Still muted. Still muted.
Precise.
Nothing's futuristic about this project. It's already old
Okay.
and outdated.
Yeah, I think you're saying that the numbers were the numbers were out of date and the technology was old.
Good. At 2023.
Numbers are out
numbers.
of date and the technology is old. Okay.
I think you can clarify.
Money numbers.
Yes.
Ridership numbers are unreliable.
Yeah. And it's the money numbers.
I think just to clarify what Patricia's saying is 16 should be the financing numbers or the cost estimate. And I think it's fair to say that he, for 17, said that the cost and the timeline and the ridership numbers were unreliable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the ridership numbers, what else? The
cost estimate,
cost projections are unreliable.
And
I think he said they were false.
Well, tomato, no?
Yes, 18 is now the same as 16 with respect to the cost.
How about I'll just change this?
Okay. I think with 18, I mean, you can say cost projections are unreliable and always have been for all their other projects to date. I mean, there's just nothing you can trust from them in anything when it comes to cost projections, time, ridership, the whole thing.
Okay. Now, anyone else? Otherwise, we're going to move into other comments. So then let's talk about the comments from the committee members. I think committee members asked questions and then they got responses. I don't know if committee members necessarily expressed, I mean, Patricia expressed an opinion. So we should denote what her opinion is.
Yeah,
Since we have Ms. Templeton here, why don't we let Ms. Templeton tell us what her opinion is?
Yeah, that the level of traffic in our neighborhood and in other cross canyon, other neighborhoods with cross canyon streets, is a serious quality of life and health issue.
Okay.
And needs a solution. Yep, it's a quality of life issue, quality of life and health issue.
Okay.
And I do think it's important to recognize that there are statements that can be brought to the fore about the opinions of the people who are working on the project and in a position of leadership, that they don't respect our communities and they really don't care what we have to say.
I think what you were saying is a lack of outreach. That was something that he said. Refusal to meet with Bel-Air Association. Okay, other comments from committee members? I had questions, not necessarily comments, but.
I was also saying that I strongly feel we should do our best to get an independent person with transit expertise to come talk to us. I don't know how to find that person, but I think it would be very useful.
And we did have a lot of good information from Bob Anderson.
Yeah, but he's not independent. He's a interested party. With an
Okay.
agenda to benefit his neighborhood, which, more power to him. That's what he should be doing. But
And then other comments or comments from members of the public that we received. So we obviously had a kind of robust conversation with Stephen Sand.
yeah, he said that they did not feel anything. They had the same concerns about the Purple Line, and they didn't feel anything when it was built under their homes or when the trains go by.
We outlined Westwood's experiences with Purple Line construction. Their worst fears did not come true.
Hey, Aaron, one of the comments in the Q&A says,
What?
this guy on the Westwood City Council realize that trains aren't even running yet on the Purple Line? How can he say that there are no violations?
Well,
He was talking about.
He was talking about the actual tunneling.
Just the construction, right, but. Okay.
yeah, so I think it's more that their worst fears didn't come true, but they didn't feel anything from the tunnel construction.
Let me put that in there. They did not feel anything when the construction of the tunnels occurred.
There's a difference between this flat.
Under their homes, because obviously everybody felt it when going down Wilshire.
I mean, I know for a fact I have people that live right by La Cienega and Wilshire. They felt that tunneling every day. They knew what it was. So I guess it depends exactly where you're at.
There's so many factors. I mean, I'm right above the Purple Line at San Vicente and Wilshire. It was literally tunneling underneath my building, and throughout my entire tenancy, I didn't feel anything. But I'm on the 7th floor of a tall building, so like I don't know. But was it a pain in the butt, like the construction? Because the dig site was literally right across from us. Yes, absolutely. Like the amount of time that they shut the street down and like all the things. It's just like, yes, it is a major disruption. Anyone who says it's not is not telling you the truth. But we didn't feel, just my personal experience, I did not actually feel the tunneling under the building. That's all I can say. I'm sure that difference, depends on the depth and like the type of building that you're in and all sorts of things.
And there's a difference between the flats and the mountains.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So
And
anyway,
the
we were talking.
timeline was mentioned for completion of the project.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Timeline. Concern that's going to take much longer to build than projected. This is not getting into environmental things, but a concern that elected officials are not adequately representing them.
I think he used stronger language than that.
I'm being very optimistic. Okay. Anything other comments from members of the public that we feel like are worthy of noting? Most of them are sort of like, we agree with you. Although there was a thing that someone mentioned that they would be able to reach out to UCLA and potentially get them to reconsider their
That
view.
was James Engstrom.
Enstrom, yes.
Enstrom. Sorry.
No, I just want to be clear.
Whether Steve Sand is involved in it or not, there's still a large lobbying interest coming from UCLA.
Is Pamela calling user 2?
Be calling user 1.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I just wanted to give ourselves a little bit of time to write down our notes. I know we're going to get minutes, but sometimes our minutes are very lengthy. So these are just going to be a little bit more easy to digest when we come to writing this letter. Again, this is the perspective of, we're trying to receive the perspectives of different stakeholders. So this is one person's perspective. Well, I shouldn't say one person. This is a person who we asked to join to speak about the perspective of the communities that he, lives in. So who do we have up next, Dr. Longcore? Who are we inviting? Do we have someone next week or?
I think it's UCLA.
Yeah, and I have an email out to UCLA asking if they could recommend somebody to speak next week.
Okay, perfect.
And I will let you know. And I've been a little tardy in getting that invite out, but it is out there and I'm in touch. And so we'll see what we hear.
Do you think anybody at UCLA would know an independent transit expert?
I think it's a dream unless it's specifically on one aspect of the EIR, because there's so much here. We've got noise and vibration is one thing, groundwater is another, the mechanics of safety are another.
But we aren't, I mean, the people we've had so far and the person that's coming from UCLA, they're not speaking strictly about the EIR. So maybe just a general transit expert wouldn't necessarily speak strictly about the EIR, but also about the other aspects that everybody else has been discussing.
I'm not sure that we would want to have UCLA be a strong advocate for one project and then say the independent person is from UCLA.
No, but ideally they wouldn't be from UCLA, but maybe they know somebody from another part of the country that, might talk to us.
UCLA is involved. How
I
about
really don't think we're gonna, I mean, it's a nice idea, but I just think that is also a dream, like Travis. So,
Well, should we, for the hell of it, ask BYD and Bechtel if they want to talk to us? They'll probably say no, but it can't hurt.
if someone wants to do it, I'm not gonna say no. Someone want to volunteer?
I will. If where do we know who to contact?
By contract agreement, will not appear at the same place at the same time.
Well, then let's ask one and then what? Just tell her we have several. How about this? Patricia, we accept your generous offer. And so if you want to, I don't know exactly who those people are, but it might be in the DEIR, some contact information, or maybe Dr. Longcore has some information he could provide, or even maybe Bob, that individual who spoke to us the first time. But
Bob Anderson.
You can ask Kathy offline. She'll tell you when at the next meetings that we have are, and invite them to attend. And I doubt they're going to say yes, but you know what? It doesn't hurt. So feel free to do it.
Somebody from one of those foreign countries.
I think they all have offices here.
I see a couple of hands here. Aaron, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention. There's a few new comments in the Q&A, one from Hans and Jenny saying that Maureen Levinson talked about the costs of monorail versus tunnel. And then one from Stephen San that
that's a good point. Let me share my screen again and we'll do that.
There's no station construction proposal for Bel-Air. What is proposed for Bel-Air is a tunnel constructed using the tunnel boring machine. To reiterate, it was the construction of the tunnel under Westwood that I said was completed with no impacts or complaints by any property owner. Okay, so he confirmed what we all thought, and yeah, that's what he said.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Building a monorail versus a tunnel. What's this, a subway? Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for and also outreach. How are we doing, Aaron, on the outreach stuff?
Excuse me, sorry, I was muted. I had emailed with Robin and Kathy about this, and I believe I got to refresh my memory, I think, but I believe the result of that was in order to get the word out there for for the outreach committee to take action on it, we would need to call a meeting, which we may not have time to do before the next board meeting. Or I need to refresh my memory on it. I can, I don't know if it's kosher to vote.
I'm pretty sure that we can send a MailChimp out at least without having an outreach committee meeting, can't we, Dr. Longcore?
Yes.
Okay.
We can let people.
One of the things that Dr. Longcore pointed out to me is the responsibility of our board members to tell their own communities about these meetings, because we don't know if they are. It's interesting to see the participants and where they come from.
I'm pretty sure that the reason why all these people showed up this week was because the Bel-Air Association told them that Fred Rosen was going to speak. That's my guess.
Well, the Bel-Air Association is represented here today and could probably speak to that. But and Irene,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
we
we sent out a notification to our community to come and participate. Absolutely.
And we really appreciate that. And what I would like to say is that if you'd like to tell them again that UCLA is coming to speak next week, we would appreciate that.
Okay, I will.
Okay,
yeah,
great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Irene sent something. Did everyone on the board should have gotten the? I did forward to everybody sometime today Irene's announcement that she sent to her stakeholders, letting people know that they can advertise. But it is, this is our. This is what we're here for, is to represent our people as best we can, but also to get the word out so that they can participate as well. So, and Irene's right on in doing that, and so everyone use those mailing lists.
We had much better participation today. We were up to like 26 people, I think, even more. So like, I don't know what happened. Probably the Bel-Air Association and what Irene did. And so thank you so much for doing that. We encourage other members to reach out to their stakeholders as well, and let them know that UCLA is coming to speak, and they've been a big driver in all of this. So it should be a good meeting next week.
I do think that we should let them know how they can see our YouTube channel for the past meetings that we've had, because they're great meetings.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know we had a YouTube channel. So yeah.
I don't.
Have we been posting these Metro meetings on our YouTube?
No.
I think I did that over the weekend, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure we have thousands of views.
We have the Bob Anderson meeting, and we have the meeting that we had last week. So those are the two that I'm aware of that are on the YouTube.
So
okay. Does there now we're moving on to good of the order. Does anyone have any last issues that they would like to raise? Kathy, did you want to say something?
I did want to say something. First of all, I wasn't in on the conversation with Aaron and Robin about having to have an outreach committee meeting to figure out some outreach. I think it's real simple that either one of your co-chairs write an email to the full board and just say, you're all welcome to encourage your constituents to attend these meetings, provided that we understand, as Travis has said several times, that for Brown Act reasons, that they're able to be in attendance but not participate in discussion.
You know what would be even better? And maybe Aaron, first of all, Aaron, I really appreciate the fact that you stepped up and you said you were going to do something and you made an effort. So what I think that, kind of following up with what Kathy said, do a 2-paragraph blurb, like 2 paragraphs. We live in the year 2025. Too long, didn't read, I swear. Do not make it long. And pithy, and with a graphic, with a proposed text. We can then send it to the members, and then they can send it to their like whoever runs their MailChimps for their little organizations. Cut, paste, send. It has to be very, very simple.
And if you make it funny, people will read these things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to do that, if you have any bandwidth, just doing some 2-paragraph blurb. Oh, great news, exciting meeting with the UCLA, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, come up with something. But it has to be very pithy, short, and get people to come. We would appreciate it.
And the last couple of dates are just the next couple.
Yes.
Between now and the 25th, on Mondays at 6:30. And also, I didn't do a lot of typing today, and I as soon as you started to do your notes, those are the notes that would go in the minutes if you wanted to share them. If you don't want to share them,
I shared them with you, Kathy, so you have them.
you did.
Yes, with your Google Drive, which or Google Docs, which I know you love to use.
Okay, yeah. You mean last time already today?
Okay. Any other? I just did it like 5
Yes.
minutes.
Okay.
I have a quick
Nikki, you have one more
follow-up.
thing? Okay,
Yeah.
let's just deal with Lawrence. Aaron one more
Quick
time.
follow-up on what we were talking about, this paragraph the paragraph blurb. Who is
With a
doing
sexy graphic.
with a sexy graphic. Who's doing the Zoom links? Because that would be great to include. Robin, okay.
And
Okay.
we had
Can I-
also talked about doing an AI.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Actually,
Dr.
I
Longport,
did
can you
Aaron,
see if you can enable that for the next meeting? It will assist Kathy greatly.
Karen, I do
Can I
those.
say something here?
Hold on real quick. Hold on. Dr. Longport, can you do that?
I can look.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, Nikki.
Yeah, I think this is quite a revelation that we're on YouTube, and I didn't know about it until I heard it just now. And I think it would be very useful if we gave the YouTube link to the first, second, and third so far meetings, so people can play it if they missed the meeting. I mean, I think it's a very valuable tool. It's a very valuable outreach tool.
And you can play it at a 1.5 speed and make everybody sound like a New Yorker.
So if you just Google BABCNC and YouTube, you'll find our page, and there is a playlist that has the 2 most recent meetings, plus the one where we had a presentation a couple of years ago about this same project is in there as well. So there's actually 3 separate meetings at this point, and when we get the one from tonight, I can get that uploaded as well.
Okay, great. And
Thank you, Travis. You have really been a great source of inspiration and leadership for all of us. And you've led the way, and we appreciate
very
it.
much. Anyone else have any other good of the order issues before we conclude?
Okay, I just think it's important to send it directly out to the public with an email blast that they can.
We're going to send a MailChimp to whoever's on our MailChimp, but then we're also going to send a 2-paragraph blurb with a sexy graphic prepared by Aaron to the board members, encouraging them to send it to their individual HOAs. Whether or not they do so is a choice that they make. Ms. Templeton, did you want to say something? Got a legacy hand.
No, yeah, it was just if anybody does happen to know contacts for BYD or Bechtel, or anybody who would know who they might be.
I think I might have one. I'll get back to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you all. It was much longer than expected, but it was a good meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.